Hello, citizens of YouTube. This is the Geeky Nerd here, and today we're going to be talking about the Sig Sauer Romeo 7 versus the Sig Sauer Romeo 7S. Before I begin, though, I'd like to send a big thank you out to everyone who has liked, commented, and subscribed on the previous videos. I always appreciate it and always enjoy talking to you guys. But if you're new here to the channel, welcome. And if you enjoy this video, enjoy this type of content, please consider liking, commenting, and/or subscribing. With all the PR out the way, let's get into it. Sig Optics, Sig Electro Optics. Like them, definitely robust, definitely have a lot of great attributes and qualities to them. And whether people like to say it or not, I firmly believe that they are in partnership with HoloSun, and you're getting a little bit of a different spec set and the Sig name, at least Sig warranty, by going with a Sig. But nevertheless, I'm not here to make speculation. But in front of us, we have the Romeo 7 and the Romeo 7S. Now, this Romeo 7S is the green variation, and this is just the red variation that the 7 comes in. And both of these optics are very closely modeled after Aimpoint Comp 4S's, and the like. And one thing that has really set Sig apart in the market, in my opinion, is the fact that they have got about 90, depending on the model, right, 80 to 90% there of an aim point, which is basically as good as you can get, considering aim points are pretty much indestructible, right, at a third, fourth of the cost, generally speaking. This Romeo 7 is picked up for, I believe, 150, and this 7S was picked up for 100. So again, two very different optics serve two very separate purposes. And again, we're going to go over that comparison here for anyone who's looking to see which one they should potentially go with. Now, both of these I would firmly consider duty grade based on their build quality, the specs and features that they offer. Definitely robust and definitely have a solid on the rifle feel. But looking at them, you can see the 7 is the big chunk versus the 7S. Now, I've never been big on just reading out the spec sheets to you guys. I think everyone kind of knows that, but I am just going to give a little bit of specs here. So you do get a 30 millimeter tube here versus a 22 millimeter tube. You do have a considerable, much more amount of weight in here. I got my scale here, so we will weigh these out with the Romeo 7 versus the 7S. 7S takes AAAs versus 7 takes AAs. In my opinion, to cut the video kind of short, because this will be just a little bit of a longer video, is if you want something that is bulletproof as possible and you don't care about the weight size or anything like that, and just the overall better version of everything, get the Romeo 7. If you are concerned about compact, lighter, rail space, what have you, then get the 7S. But I personally like the 7 better just for how it looks, feels, and what it offers. So that's the long and short of it. But getting the first part out the way, the weight. So here I'm going to break out handy dandy little scale, zeroed out. You can see here, Romeo 7 is 14.2 ounces, and Romeo 7S, 9. So not quite double, but definitely more considerable, considering though you do have a QD lever on here and a bit more robust, that may factor in. Let's turn this off here and move that out. So looking at the optics themselves, what you see is what you get. With the Romeo 7, you do have well, both of them have flip caps. Romeo 7S has clear see-through versus solid on the Romeo 7. Directly comparing those two, I would say I personally prefer the solid. I'm not a big fan of the see-through. The solid variation, it does have like a little rubber lip that does considerably snaps better and closes in on the optic versus the flexible one here. It has a lip on the lid, which if you notice when you go to close it, it does kind of start to pinch on that corner. So you have to kind of pull down and seat that lip for it to actually seal. Not as durable. You can see where this is a little bit of the cheaper variation, but again, both are perfectly fine. It's just the specs between the two do vary in that aspect. Also with the Romeo 7, you do happen to get a metal kill flash, which is nice, considering it does have that deep red hue. But one thing as well, take this piece off, you can see the actual lens piece is recessed quite a bit into the optic, right about to there. So you do have a bit before it actually impinges on the glass itself. Just putting that back on here versus on the 7 here. Actually, I will do the other side because they're in the battery compartment. Again, it's a more compact optic. But going on the back here, you can see it is pretty much just right there, right on that lip. I probably will in the future replace these caps just because, as you can tell, I'm not the biggest fan of them. I just feel like they are the cheaper variation overall. and I feel like there can be better options had, but okay for right now. Uh, the mount solution. So the Romeo 7 does come with a crossbolt as well as a QD. A lot of people are replace the QD, but I say it's perfectly fine. It does have the quick adjustment here for the focus. You can see actually where you can just push on here and twist this to get a tighter fit on your rail. It does lock into place and does require you sliding this little mechanism here to release. So very kind of similar to I guess an ADM mount. Versus here, we have the cross bolt. But one thing it does have on this crossbolt does have the extra locking lug, versus on the QD it does not. So for heavy recoil, maybe better for the 7S here. Looking at the body, you can see they are both different as far as for the manufacturing process, where the Romeo 7 has kind of just the standard finish aircraft grade aluminum, 7075 or 7076 or 6051 or 6065, whatever it is, right? All the variations. But it does feel as though the body itself is a bit more hollow, a bit lighter, a bit of a thinner material, versus where when you pick up the 7S, you can see it's almost like it's a machine. It's formed, pressed. You see the seam from the casting. So this feels a lot more milled, stronger, what have you, a bit more compact, robust. Versus this does feel a little bit more lighter on the body. But I know from durability tests that the Romeo 7 has won out, if by ever so slight of a margin. Again, comparing here, the turrets on the 7 here are capped, but they are shrouded, nice and protected here. But they are, again, they're capped beneath, so they do offer that bit of protection, versus where the Romeo 7 is exposed, but they are flush, but they don't have any turns. So if any direct impacts on here may, inadvertently adjust your windage or elevation, versus on here may have a bit better chance. But in either case, they are both still protected. Just different forms to do it. Same thing for your windage. You have there battery cover on either side. You can see some similarities. They are again, the Romeo 7 takes a AA, Romeo 7S takes a AAA. You can see some of the machining on the 7S is nice. It is kind of difficult to screw and unscrew, considering it is very close to the body, is smaller. It is tethered with a just a little lanyard here. One thing about the build quality, though, again, like I'll say, you can see there, it's basically just a screw threaded into the body. Versus on here, it is capped around the end of the cap. Again, they're both sturdy. This does have a brass, or at least appears to be brass, type bushing, threading, what have you, versus this is just standard aluminum. But I like this design quite a bit better, and there's definitely a lot more meat to grab. But again, a bigger optic. Again, we already went over the bottom here. Just looking at the bottom again. I do like this little etching here. You can see, the camera size it wants to focus here. The etching on for Sig Sauer into the body or embossed in is quite nice. And then finally, as we just flip everything up here, looking through the optic, you can see the kill flash. Whenever you have it mounted on your gun, it doesn't really impede anything, since considering you should be just kind of looking through the optic and not necessarily looking at the kill flash. But I do prefer it with than without. Very long tube, you can see in there, and if I grab my little light, shining the opposite side, you can see the emitter embedded down in there, but very close to you. So it's nice. And then the turret for the illumination does have 2 night vision settings, and then the rest are daylight settings. So it is very easy to click. It is very tactile. Check on the other review on the channel for the night vision performance here, but just kind of cycling through, like how everything now goes to 11, right? But you'll see here on the 11 mark, the dot is very circular, clean, crisp, no halo effect, which is one thing I will say is a knock against the 7S. It does have quite a bit of a halo effect. But you see there is nice, clean, crisp, and a red dot, right? Now the battery life on here is going to be, I believe, just when you do the rough math, it's like 20% longer on the 7 versus 7S, just because you already do have a AA versus a AAA. So if that matters to you, you can just leave this on. That is at the medium setting, not this high setting. Now here's with the 7S. Take the cover off just to make it as equal as possible here. You can see, as opposed to starting in the off position at the body, starts at the 12 o'clock. Same night vision settings. Now this is the green variation, but going through here, you go all the way to max, and you'll see there's the optic. Let's try to see if we can get the same close-in shot. So there is the emitter. You can see it is a bit of a different design. It's a bit more, you say, open, potentially more fragile, but it is, again, securely sealed. Just looking back here, Romeo 7 is a bit more kind of shielded a bit farther back. Now, one thing about the 7S, as I was saying, is there's a halo effect that does occur. So it's not picking it so much up on camera, but actually you kind of see some of it occurring there. And this is the halo effect people talk about with the green variation where they don't like it. It's not really that important to me. Yeah, you can see it right there. So the halo effect I'm referring to is around the outer edge of the glass at the maximum brightness, actually 3 settings below the maximum. But the maximum, of course, you get at the worst. You can see the green dot kind of illuminates circular around the glass. I don't find it that obtrusive. It does it does make it a bit harder to see the actual dot, but and some people would argue it gives you better acquisition to kind of be able to find the dot. Hey, where is it, right? Look for the green. There is also one weird artifact. I'm not sure this is very specific to mine, but you can almost kind of see in the glass, suspended in space, is kind of a double dot, right? And that does kind of occur as we cycle through, but once we get to about 3 positions down, it sort of disappears, right? But again, it's at a lower setting. But in either case, outside of that little weirdness specific to the 7S, you can see the dot is very circular, very crisp, clean. And if you have a very severe astigmatism, of course, go to your eye doctor first, your optometrist. But the green dot can be slightly better for you. Let's just power this guy off. Clicks are very tactile on both, so no concerns there between the two. Of course, the Romeo 7 does feel a bit more chunkier, just a bit more robust built, but considering it is a bigger optic, right, it's going to have that a bit of a heft. Overall, though, between the two, I will say that, again, said it before, I say it again, the Romeo 7 is the better choice unless you are space constrained or unless you prefer the green dot. Those two are the only things that really sway me to the 7S. But overall, I'd pick the Romeo 7. Also, Romeo 7 just has a kick-ass look to it, doesn't it? Also, whenever mounting these, I found that they both have, I guess you say, both similar height. I'm trying to just match them up here for you guys. For that lower 1/3, I will say you get more of a true lower 1/3 with the Romeo 7 versus the Romeo 7S. Romeo 7S starts creeping up in between absolute and lower 1/3. It doesn't necessarily get perfectly there. But on the inverse side, if you want to get a lower mount, you can swap out this mount on the 7S for a lower height mount as opposed to the Romeo 7. You are still having a big optic no matter what. So yeah, that's between those two optics. That's kind of the direct comparison right now. Just to really throw a shoehorn crazy in here, right? I'm going to bring in my tried and true EOTech, which love it to death. As you guys have seen, I love my EOTech. I love my EOTech 512s. But just to give a somewhat off comparison, right, between the two, to kind of show, hey, that bigger viewing window, right? So you can see directly with the EOTech 512 and the Romeo 7. With that square optic, you obviously do have a better field of view, but you still have something bigger. Now, if we take this optic, keep it almost the same, right? We're just going to power this guy on here. Obviously, I understand being different colors, but you can kind of see how that tube does get pretty tight, especially with the shrouding around here, but it does give durability, but I've yet to see an EOTech die on me, right? But just to maybe have this be here, this be here. I know I'm trying to do this. This is not the easiest thing to do, right? But just trying to give you guys that comparison. I won't worry about trying to center the dot. But you can see there for the various window sizes to be able to see the dot. You can see that the Romeo 7 is going to be the tightest. Romeo 7S is going to be the tightest. Romeo 7 is going to be the largest, and then of course something like an EOTech going to be the widest. And then just directly comparing the main 2 point of this video, you can see that a bit of a difference. You do get more of that cheap effect with the Romeo 7S versus it somewhat disappears with the Romeo 7. So yeah, just want to throw that little wild card in there since that's the main thing people consider about. But yeah, hope that helped you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider liking, commenting, and or subscribing. And I hope everyone is having a wonderful, awesome, fantastic day. And I will catch you guys next time. See you guys.